Welcome to Lesson 2 for Section 9 of the BJCP training program from the Brewers Anonymous Homebrew Club. We're continuing our look at the brewing ingredient hops. In this lesson, we're taking a brief look at hop history. If you've brewed to almost any extent or just read the ingredients on a beer's label, if the ingredients are listed, you know that there are many varieties of hops, with more being bred every year. Even with so many hops available to brewers, they can be generally divided into two subsets. First, bittering hops and aroma hops. Already, with that generalization of these two subsets, we already have a noted exception in our study material that's worth pointing out, and that is that some of these hops can also be categorized as dual purpose, meaning that they are used for both bittering and aroma hops. Historically, there's been a selection of hops most desired for their aromatic and subtle bitter properties, and they're referred to as noble hops. The noble hops include Saaz, Spalt, Tettnanger, and Hallertauer Mittelfruit. Now, taking a look at aroma hops. Aroma hops are generally lower in alpha acid content while contributing desirable flavors and aromas. Conversely, bittering hop varieties are higher in alpha acid percentages. Typically, the flavor and aroma of bittering hops are also considered to be a little less refined, but of course, with both of these, there's going to be exceptions, and in the case of hops, more exceptions every year as things change, improve, and new varieties are added to the market. Now, for the example of aroma hops, if you're an experienced brewer, even an experienced beer fan, this is going to look like a relatively short list, and it really is. This is a list that was compiled as an example only, not a definitive collection of hops that are typically used for aroma and flavor that we need to know for our exam. This is by no means a definitive nor an exhaustive list. So let's take a look here. For an example of aroma and flavor hops, we have Saaz, Tettnanger, Hallertauer, Spalt, East Kent Goldings, Styrian Goldings, Fugels, Cascade, Willamette, Liberty, Crystal, Ultra, and Mount Hood. We've also been given a set of examples for bittering hops. Again, nowhere a definitive or complete list, but the varieties we need to know, and they are Brewer's Gold, Nugget, Chinook, Eroka, Galena, and Bullion. We're also given an example set of dual-purpose hops, and again, this is generally speaking, the ones that we want to be familiar with for our exam are Northern Brewer, Columbus, Cluster, Perle, and Centennial. Now, as a brewer myself, just looking at all three of those lists, I have a lot of questions. I also have a lot of contradictions, and I also think I have some corrections. However, I want to point out once again, especially when we're talking about ingredients and brewing processes, this is the information that the exam is built from. This is the information we will need to know and refer to for our exam. This is not a how to brew course. This is not necessarily a chemistry course by any means. Again, it's the information that's on our exam, so you're probably having some of the same questions and thoughts I am looking at those lists, but the goal here is to pass our exams, get a good score, and help increase the pool of judges not only in our area, but our hobby, and keep our hobby alive. Okay, I think that's enough of a disclaimer on what we just went through. Let's move on here in the rest of this lesson. Now, going into actual history on hops, hops were introduced as a beer ingredient prior to 1000 AD. They came into widespread usage in the 16th century when they were legislated as a required ingredient in the Reinheitsgebot German beer purity law of 1516. Hops are grown in various regions throughout the world. This, of course, is not a complete list of where hops are grown or can be grown. With the right conditions, weather, and hop growers willing to put in the work, hops can be grown in many regions all over the world. Some of the more notable regions and source for hops for brewers are the Pacific Northwest of the United States, Germany, the Czech Republic, the United Kingdom, Australia, and New Zealand. Now, here's some more detailed facts about hops that are interesting as well as part of our exam study material. Hop varieties have been enriched through intensive crossbreeding. This has led to the development of newer disease-resistant varieties. We mentioned briefly that hop bitterness comes from the alpha acids in the hop cones. And there are three types of acids found in the hop cones. These are humulone, cohumulone, and adhumulone. The amount of these compounds found in hops is going to vary between each variety of hop. Adding the alpha acids directly into the wort don't produce that signature bitterness alone. The alpha acids are isomerized into isoalpha acids in the boiling process of brewing. This makes those alpha acids much more soluble in our wort and increases their bitterness. Along with these alpha acids, essential oils in the hop cones produce the flavor and aroma in beer. These essential oils consist of dozens of compounds in various amounts depending on the variety of hop. Many of these oils are volatile and don't survive extended boil times. With the volatile nature of these oils, flavor and aroma hops are typically added during the last 30 minutes of the boil, all the way up to the end of the boil, as well as in a whirlpool step and even in dry hopping during fermentation to draw out strong aromas. Adding the hops to the boil, that comes in several different forms, starting with whole hops. We can put the entire cone, typically it's dried first, but we can put the entire whole cones into the boil. We can use hop plugs. These are dried hops that are compressed into half-ounce discs. Most typically, we will use pellet hops. These are hops that were dried and ground into a powder, then extruded through a die. And we can use extracts. We have extracts that consist of isomerized extracts for bitterness, as well as hop aroma essence versions. Now that we've taken a look at a bit of the history on hops, we're going to take a deeper look on how we utilize them in our brewing. That's in the next lesson, and I will see you there.